Oh, look at this. We also have some people. Meow meow. Hey, Yanni. Scott, good to see you. Jess, welcome, my friends. Okay, I'll try to keep this relatively on track. I was wondering if I was even gonna stream at all, but it's because things have just felt heavy. There's been a bit of a malaise. Yeah, kitty. Um, but I just got to do a comment on this because I was just trying to finish up before we get into here. I was just trying to finish up this Rhett McLaughlin thing, which I'm almost there. Look at, I have like 14 minutes left. And this dude, he goes for making such good points to just and I suppose we all do this, to just being in my mind so unbelievably unconsciously blind that and I suppose that's true. It's part of listen. Here we go. Let's look at this because I don't know why I'm surprised by this because let's go to my channel. Is that what we're doing? Let's go to videos. Let's go down to let's go to my first videos. Mosaic Vision, which I got some comments on the other day. Some people were watching. And then look at that. Mosaic Vision 1 and 2 and then seeing is not seeing. So wow, it's just funny. Oops, I'm trying to leave StreamYard. My bad. I should know this, right? To see something is to not see something else. It's part of what salience is. It's part of what focal attention is. If you're seeing this thing, I talk about Polanyi a lot. You're not seeing this thing, or it's in your periphery. I can't look at this screen. I can't look at this camera and look back here at my 9 or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? And well, my 9's on my side. My 7, my 8, my 4. You can't see everything all at once because if to see everything all at once would be to see nothing. 6. So I guess that makes sense whenever you're seeing something, you're not seeing something else. And the one Rhett McLaughlin comment that I had is he was laying out this case. He was basically saying towards the end that Christians cannot. He used 2 examples: render unto Caesar what's Caesar's, and then he said, and then he used the example of the devil tempting Jesus and vowing to give him all the power of the world. And so he was saying, he's just like, you actually can't be a Christian and seek political power. Which, I mean, as a Christian anarchist, I largely agree with that principle. Although, we're going to get into some of that conversation, and Steve Axe and OG Rose were talking about this recently. It's like you can't really avoid the political. That's a conversation I'm open to having. But the main idea of this stream, it's just amazing to me because then he immediately, sorry, I'll wrap up the Rhett thing. It's only been 3 minutes. And then he says something like, all these people are driven by fear, fear of brown people, fear of people taking their jobs, and he's just saying like all the right-leaning MAGA people are fear-driven. And I'm like, really? They're the only fear-driven ones? I'm just like, anyone interested in politics almost is driven by either fear or power. Like that's like I see the only things that people tell you are fear. Like watch either side of the political culture war debate, and they're motivating you by fear. Like it's not. Good Lord. Okay. It's just interesting blindness. However, that will get to the point of what I want to talk about, which is I'm going to use some illustrations, but I want to try to lay it out here. The title of my video is Ideas, Identity, Community, and Discipline. And this is something I talk about a lot. But the main video that I was thinking about is PVK's homeroom video this morning, which was, let's look it up. I don't know that I'm going to play part of it, but it's the end of the church age and the rise of the digital surrogate, which, whatever, I'm going to get ads because YouTube got to be making that cheddar. And they have a ton of ads, and I do not have. So at 53:58, I'll play some of it. I mean, a lot of people probably haven't even watched it yet because he just dropped this morning. But let's play part of this. Here we go.
Bigger than the PCA, would he still live in fear of those? You've got the theopolitical economical. And what if Matthew Eberhard can just do way better without the PCA? Maybe without his old wife, maybe without this, maybe without that, just out there in the attention economy.
Found I needed a new.
Okay, so that's, I mean, go watch PBK's video, and he has a lot of links to a lot of other discussions that are going on with that. But the main idea is, as PBK was laying out, is there's this story of the big bullet points, or there's Philip Yancey, who's this Christian writer, teacher, thinker. Apparently he's been having a ongoing 8-year affair. And so he was stepping down for public ministry, right? So ministry is one of those things that, what's up, Nick? What's up, Paul Allen? Hi, guys. Public ministry, or ministry, Christian ministry, is one of those words that fudge, to use a PBK, Paul Vanderklay term. What is Christian ministry? And then he had this guy, PBK had this guy on the channel. I forget what his name was. He's a PCA pastor who was doing commentary on it. I think he was PCA. I think that's what he said. He sounded very, very Reformed, Baptist-y, Young, Restless, and Reformed, all the kinds of people that I grew up with. And he was talking about church discipline. And he was talking about Philip Yancey. And he said, what is it? Philip Yancey is stepping down from church discipline, but he sold 150 million books. And he's like, I'd love to sell 150 million books. But all of this is very related to what PBK said there, the theopolitical, economical, attention economy thing. What does it mean in a modern age, with even before the internet, right? What did church discipline look like in a Gutenberg world where all of this is, it's not even the Gutenberg world. It's also the combustion engine world, where you could vote not only with your butt in the pew. It's part of the move from sincerity and honor shame culture to, I don't know, what's the difference? Is Matt here, or what have we been talking about? Ron, hey guys. I know Nick, you're here. What are the different kinds of culture? It's honor shame culture, and then, because this is something we've been talking about in the Signal chat. Risto, you would know too. And then you move to I don't know, is it virtue culture? I don't know what the difference is, but so much of this is related to technology. So much of it, because in a pre-industrial age, where you just had cart and buggy and horses, discipline looked very different. Church discipline looked very different. Honor and shame looked very different. If you did something to disrupt your community or your family, or you did something shameful, you couldn't just drive your car across the country, go get a new family, fly across the world, get a new family, get a new job, get a new group of people. You couldn't just leave your church, drive across town to go get another church where you have new people, new ideas, new things. They're not going to judge you. Technology really, this is medium is the message thing. Technology really affected the ways that churches could have discipline. And so we still throw around those terms as if it's all the same thing. But to the case of Philip Yancey, he's just we have all these old, very ancient, dogmatic, kind of mimetic forms of I've committed adultery. I no longer, because of these biblical precedents and traditional precedents, I cannot be an elder. Again, what is the biblical word? The Titus, Timothy, what are the qualifications of an elder? First Timothy 2, I think, is the qualifications for an elder, the big one where they go through. And it's husband of one wife. Most of them are character qualities. There's only 2 issues. It's able to teach and something else. I forget what it is, but most of them are character things. So then what does it mean for discipline, to discipline someone? to take them out of leadership in a modern age. PVK is talking about that a lot because they could just leave. Those go find a different church. You know, it's Mark Driscoll. He brought up the case of Mark Driscoll. Mark Driscoll left Mars Hill. I got a lot of that story. Pause. I got what up? The cheddar, the cheese, the cheddar. Coming back. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Have no fear. I'm coming back. Risto, great question. Also, what is a good question to ask friends to see if they're willing to dialogue? You could just ask them that. The problem is so much of this stuff is unconscious, and we'll get into it. So, yeah. Have you tried? Are you willing to dialogue? A quick aside to answer that is I've often wanted to ask. I don't know that I've asked this in physical embodied life, but I've asked it online, or I've talked about asking it, which is just like, are you open to? And this is interesting. This shows a shift in me. Are you open to changing your mind about things? But I think even a better question is, are you open? Are you capable, or are you interested in listening to people who come at these issues from a very different perspective and see the world differently? Because I think that's really the thing, is like, if you want to do the like facts and logic thing, like let's just have a debate about facts. Personally, I don't have any interest in that, because I think what you see and hear depends a lot upon where you're standing and the kind of person you are. So I think you're going to debate the facts. You're going to see different facts because salience, because you can't all look at the same things, and because of embeddedness, incarnation, your life, the fields of resonance in which you've participated. What you see and hear depends a lot upon where you're standing and the kind of person you are. That's different for everyone. Really? Believe it or not, right? Where you're standing and the kind of person you are. That means where you're standing in history, in linear time, related to your family, with your own body, how you've treated your body. Every relationship that you have to everything in the world is where you are standing. And the kind of person you are is the character that you have that has been shaped by all of the decisions that you've made, of all the voluntary choices you've made and the involuntary choices that you've made. Your thrownness, like there's certain things I did not choose that are part of who I am. And I see the world based on all of that. And and in this very moment, I cannot change that. It's not up to my will. It really isn't. Like, I have limited amounts of things I can change. It's Jordan Peterson's video on free will, which is very great, where he talks about how your will affects things in relation to time. And so when you're when you're going to talk to somebody else, I think you have to acknowledge that, which means you're not having a conversation about facts and logics, because you see different facts and logic. That's a presuppositional thing. And again, that's rooted in whether or not you have that presupposition is based in all the same things. Like, if you go to a different part of the world, you go to the Amazonian rainforest, you're not going to talk to them about facts and logic, because they don't give a shit. They don't care about all that stuff, because they live in a completely different world. It's the same world, but their perspective about it is totally different. So, and like it's hard to lay out all these ground rules. Like, Hezi, you're saying this here, these rules are important. Well, you're talking about, who's wise, who's the one who learns from every person. Yeah, and those are the words of the living God. I agree with that. But like, I don't know that there's anything that you can just necessarily straight up ask people that's going to get you there, to be able to ask that. You're going to learn through talking to them. And this is why I've often said humility is a huge piece of it, because two things is like, one of the ways that I've said it is all that we're doing here online, and all that we're doing almost in anything when we're talking about ideas, is we're giving and receiving. We're reaping and sowing seeds. And the fruit of the seeds, I would say that ideas are seeds. The fruit of the seeds is what is enacted when the seed is received and nurtured and germinated and cultivated and grown and bears fruit. That is when the seed has been received and has brought forth fruit. The ideas in and of themselves are just seeds. They're in their inner potential. They're objects. And so the kinds of conversations I want to have when I'm talking about ideas are those kinds of conversations with people who know and acknowledge that. Otherwise, you're going to be unconsciously playing other kinds of games that, back to the Rhett point, have a lot more to do with bureaucracy and politics and fear and power and control. And I hate those games. They give me like a bodied, anxious reaction to it. Like I have like a very visceral reaction to those kinds of things. And so here we go. We're going to get back to the title. So ideas, identity, community, and discipline. I do want to answer this question, but I'm going to go back to PVK's video and then circle back to this question. I don't even know how to say it. Brett, who do I know you? What I see your handle and I know you watch my stuff, but I don't have an association and a face and a name to associate it with. So ideas are seeds. They're potential. Thank God, Mitch. Thank the Lord. Brett. Okay, got it. So the Rhett conversation, the PVK video. So Philip Yancey, he's having an affair. He's going to step down from ministry. Again, what is ministry? This is the thing. Is like ministry influence, but he's still going to maintain a YouTube channel. So this is the thing that PVK is trying to get at with all these things. Is like we have these different mediums of like books change the world. So like books led to the Protestant Reformation. So authority went from the priestly class to what? The individual class. Eventually, I think it got there, but via books, it went through like it got to like academic expert class, which used to be all probably condensed into the priestly class, because the priestly class, they were priests, but they were also the academics, they were the literate, they were the experts, they were all of those things at once. And then, as C.S. Lewis said, we in a sense, he said scientists are the priests of the modern age, which I think we are. And even if you think about this in kind of a spiral dynamics way, that's like, isn't that orange? Rigel, you here? Because this gets into evolution of consciousness, and let's try to look at this picture. Where are humanity? Where are we? The journey. Don't you like when you just go to find a picture, and sometimes you just want to click the picture, and it's just like, but then you have to go through all these steps to get there. It's like, come on, kids. So spiral dynamics. Rigel knows this stuff way better than me. I actually don't know. I don't know if Rigel even works in this thing. So you have all these different color phases. So like, and this gets into like human consciousness and evolution. This works at like societal levels, cultural levels, but it also global levels probably, but it also works at individual levels. So you started this like beige. Are we seeing this? Should I zoom in? This isn't the best picture, but you get it. So beige, instinctual, survivalistic. So this is like a baby, like it's just all instinct, toddler. And then purple, you get into magical, animalistic, right? Like everything's magic, object permanence, right? Like, oh, here you see it. Oh, it's gone. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore, right? But like, there's some truth. Okay, pause. I gotta go do something. Pause. I'll be right back. Steep slope. Steep slope. Jeremy, just wait. We're getting there, buddy. Don't prejudge. Just breathe. Calm down. Kunyasana. My daughter's still here. She's like, you're a crazy person. What am I on? This is why people make insanely weird edits of you. These are just little insights. little insights into my life. My daughter loves me so much. She's a sweet, sweet girl. She's feeling better. We're happy about it. Okay, let's get back to spiral dynamics. So magical, right? The world is magic. But then we have a individual and cultural, right? We had a disenchantment. The world is no more magical, right? It's not magical. Like we're in the scientific realm, right? Science, facts, logic. We're not like geocentric, we're heliocentric. We don't, the world, my perspective is in the center of the universe. Like this objective reality is the center of the universe. And we can know facts but that's so you move impulsive, egocentric, red. I think it's also known as like I thought red was known as traditional too. See, there's different names for this. Dominant. What else is the names for these things? I'm looking at other pictures. Let me impulsive self, and then rule self. The blue is traditional, right? Purposeful, authoritarian. I would say like these, the red and the purple are very much more like sincerity culture things, honor shame culture things. Like all this stuff is super related. And the nice thing about spiral dynamics is it's all integral theory. And so when you move higher in the thing, you're not losing the lower levels. They're integrated into it, but it's just like a different, you're moving up the spiral, further up and further in. Listen, we all believe in the spiral. Like if you don't believe in the spiral, you don't believe in progress, you don't believe in telos, you can't actually have purposes and goals and think. I don't know that it's possible to act in the world without values and goals and telos. So like that's all this is, people. Just relax. Again, breathe. And so then authoritarian, where you just like strong leader, monarchs. I think that it's impossible to know these things because you only know things through initiation. But I think ancient cultures, and sometimes now even like collectivist cultures, they tend to not be able to think of themselves as individuals apart from the collective, from the whole, from the group. And there's truth to that, right? Because you can't really. The isolated autonomous individual doesn't exist. The orange is I don't want to spend too much time on this. Rigel's great at this stuff. I should have a conversation with Rigel about spiral dynamics. The strategic, green, communitarian, egalitarian, where it's just like more of a global consciousness. But see how it's almost connecting back to like a magic thing where it's like communitarian, because it's like, oh, all the world is one, everything is connected, the butterfly effect. You can't like do things over here on this side of the world and then not have things affect things over here on the other side of the world. Everything's connected, like the African Sahara sands like end up on the other side of the world. Like you can't pollute the air increasingly over and over and over forever in China. That doesn't, like, we're all breathing the same air. And like, yeah, it's over there for a while and it's not affecting us now, but it's all connected. Globalist economy gets there. Yellow is integrative, and then it just keeps where you like integrate these things, and then I think it goes like there's turquoise and beige and holistic. I don't know. It keeps going. Anyhow, why did I even bring up flipping spiral dynamics? What was I talking about? I think everything I was just saying, I think is pretty straightforwardly true. But again, like this is the problem. If you're still somewhat in like the world of facts and logic, you can't, if it's yellow, let it mellow. Meow, let it meow. You can't, this is a little bit of the problem of like ideas and identity and community, is like certain communities and ideas will have set, but this is where medium gets into it, right? Where like you'll have set ideas that are okay. This is when you're like confessionally, dogmatically, like it even gets into the idea of like bounded set and center set, right? I mean, we talk about this a lot. So like bounded set, center set, let's, so like, here's the idea. Let me share this picture. And like you could think about this in terms of lots of stuff, ideas. So like this is bounded set, center set. Oh, grace and peace. Thank you for your grace and peace. So like this is as it actually relates to Christianity. Oh, I'm not sharing the right thing. Stop, remove, share screen, Stop screen, share. This is the better picture. Okay, bounded set, center set. So like here, when you think of these things in terms of like straight identitarianism, like ideas, like we all have the same right ideas that are like the good ideas, and then really which is works-based righteousness. Like we're saved by these works, by these ideas that you either have or you don't have, right? Which makes you think of the Gregory of Nyssa quote, where like salvation, well, one, salvation is a lot more about subtraction than addition, right? Because you're letting go of the will and the ego, not my will, but your will, rather than like, no, I'm willing these things, or I have these ideas. And it's much more about being versus having. You know, that's my paraphrase of Gregory of Nyssa. So like, if you have this center set thing, it's like that could be ideas, it could be morals, it could be ethics, it could be, you know, again, so like Philip Yancey, he had an 8-year affair, so he's stepping out of public ministry. So he's outside of the set. Outside of what set? Outside the set of authority and ministry. So he's out here because this is the rule, and so he's outside the rule. But yet, is he really outside the rule? Because how about influence? Like, what is really this? This is getting at the point of what I'm trying to talk about. Because where does the authority really lie in the modern age? And I think a lot of times, Jeremy, we bullshit ourselves with stuff that we profess to believe things that we don't really believe. So we'll say like, you know, if this person does this, well, they're out. Okay, well, you can say that, and you can even act that way. But then, like, do you really believe that? Well, see you, babe. You guys could take those little half sannies I made. You can take both of them if other doesn't make it. Other. Because really, at the end of the day, like what is Christian community in the modern age, right? Because the Gutenberg revelation is we had the priestly class, sincerity culture, honor and shame. They were the authority. And then we said later, close the screen. And then, but then we're like, no, you're no longer the authority. So then we will decide the authority. But then we have all these different churches and they're the authority, but then we want to do church discipline. So then they leave. But in the modern age, when you do church discipline, like let's just say this guy, whoever this PCA pastor that PVK was talking about, who was talking about Philip Yancey, talking about turtles all the way down. If let's say he has church discipline, let's say he has some extramarital affair and somebody has church discipline, what is he going to do? Well, he's either going to leave the PCA and find another church with close to the same ideas and go to that church, and they will either know about the thing or not know about the thing, or he'll just say, okay, he'll reject those ideas. Like, how do you really do discipline in a modern age when you can just vote with your technology, which is either like your dollar, your money, your butts in the seats, your car? You can leave. If you have a really bad fallout with the church, then you become like ex-evangelical, and you go over, like where is authority really lie with all these things? PCA is, I think, Presbyterian Church in America, I believe. And even like this is my experience a little bit at like, because I've been to a lot of different churches. At my last evangelical church that I was going to is, and this is well, we'll get into some confessional time. This is one of the things that I miss, that I truly do miss about evangelical churches that we tend to go, that we would go to before we became Orthodox, is small groups. Like my Orthodox church does not have anything that's really close to like what I would call a small group kind of church life. And because of what I see in here, and because of the kind of person I am, and because of how I've been formed, that kind of a church community feels very real and valuable and personal and intimate to me. And I don't get that kind of thing in my church. But one of the problems was that church, so we would always talk about, or I've gone to one where they call them faith families. And that was one of my big struggles of the church, which led to me leaving the church for the Orthodox Church. I mean, which was the last step on a many stepped version to get to Orthodoxy, where we would go to house church, small group. I think they call them faith families. something like that. No, maybe not. That was a different church. What did we call it? We probably called it house church, because it was really like a house church idea where it was like the Sunday gathering is like the just come together thing. The real thing is the house church. And but there was like a little booklet thing that the pastors had put together and the elders had put together, the authority, right? The leaders, the qualified people of the church who are able to teach sound doctrine. And we would go through these books, but then the problem was if we ever deviated from the books and started having conversations of just what came up and people started sharing intimately, the small group leader, who was also like essentially a deacon or an elder, I think he became an elder eventually, he would revert because he's like, because you don't want to get off script, right? We got to get back to the authoritative teaching of the pastor and the leader, which is like back to the Bible. It's from the Bible, because that's the authority. The Bible is the authority rooted in a text, which, like I've talked about, I don't believe. And then from that, we've distilled our catechetical text, which is this house church doctrine, which like he was based off epistles. Like I think it was going through, he had one on Galatians and a Philippians. I probably have them around somewhere, and one on Ephesians. And so and then you go through those, but then you deviate from that too much into the discussion. Well, then to what degree can or can you not deviate from the discussion? Like, do we just need to read that and then repeat it? And then how do you really do catechesis with it? Whatever. That was the whole discussion. And I kept having conversations with the pastors and the small group leaders of having meetings of like, listen, I'm sitting here, and part of this has to do with being intuitive and reading people. And I would just be like, for me personally, every time that you redirect back to the text, to me, it kills the spirit of the group. And like the kind of thing that forms in an estuary where like, I think people are being really vulnerable and intimate and sharing. And that's because I'm a big, authenticity culture stuff, where I was like, real work is happening. Because to me, like where people are being vulnerable and sharing more intimate things rather than just saying the sincerity culture, like, you give me the prompt, I tell you the thing that I'm supposed to say, and then like that, we call that formation. Whereas like we never share anything personal and intimate. We never really know what's going on in people's lives. So then we find out they're having an 8-year affair, or like a pastor at a different church where I was at, where you find out like he was really like soliciting prostitutes on Ashley Madison, but he was like fast tracked to become a pastor. Like I want to create environments in church where people talk about the kind of stuff that allows people to upstream of those extreme examples are talking about struggles that they have, where people can be most real. So I guess whatever, I'm going to cut it off because I'm going to probably open this up where I think we really have to figure out, let me try to summarize. I think we really need to figure out in a modern age, in an attention economy, where now a lot of attention is in these and screens and because like books change the world, this has changed the world a lot. And in the attention economy, what does authority, identity, and community look like? And how are those things really formed? Because like you can't, I don't know that like institutional churches, what I often have called industrial churches, really have the capacity to do much church discipline because a lot of honor shame cultures don't work. The older people that are in my church, that's just what I'll say about my church. That's one of my struggles also for my church, is most of the people who go to my church, I would largely put them into two categories, really. Is they're the older people who are like ethnically Orthodox, cradle Orthodox, not converts. Their parents weren't converts. They were just like, they come from families with direct lineages from Eastern Europe, Carpatho-Rusin, kind of, and their sincerity, honor, shame cultures. Those kinds of people, you could very much do old school church discipline. Like if something happened in their families where, we just had house blessings, and PVK has talked about pastoral house visits where you come into the house and you really see what's going on in the house. Old churches used to do that. We don't do that anymore. And so you can very much go to church, put on your church face, put on your church clothes, say all the church things, go home and live kind of a completely separate, compartmentalized life. Although no one would say that that's the goal, that's what a lot of people do. So like you have those sincerity culture people where you could do old school church discipline where it would just be like, listen, you can't do this anymore, or you're kicked out of the community. That would really affect them. In the modern post-industrial age of like a car, that kind of thing isn't that really powerful and effective. In like small towns, it's maybe effective because small towns, there's fewer choices. So like you have more of an honor shame culture where those kinds of drivers matter. In a modern big city, like if you exert church discipline, like they will go down the block. There's like Minnesota, there's churches everywhere. I'll go to a different church, or I'll stop going to this church and go to a different church, or like what are really the driving factors to be able to do church discipline in the erosion of like real community where you have lifelong long-standing friendships and family, and where you live when everyone is moving around so much and isolated from those things. What is community? What does bodies look like? Because the reality is like all of us do. Discipline's going to happen in bodies for sure. It's going to happen. Like if you have a value, like this is a good thing. When people deviate from that value, you're going to want to exert discipline because they're deviating from the good, from whatever body you participate in. I think that's like not even debatable. You're going to want to do discipline, like whether it's like broad culture, online media virtue signaling, or virtue, or like shaming. When you deviate from that and you shame people, and cancel culture and all that is just like discipline. That's social, parasocial body discipline. So like it's kind of unavoidable. And I don't know. And then you get into like the Scott Adams thing and online streaming. Like this is what Paul is trying to get at in these conversations, and I suppose that's where I want to open it up. I'll say this is what I want to talk about when I open it up, and then I'll end one more thing with like just telling you from my mind what is my professed goal and what I'm trying to do. Because like as we've talked about a lot with like Matt C and his video that's been coming up a lot on Scrollers podcast or whatever it is, where he's doing the drawings, he's doing like the little home math thing. The thing that I want to talk about is like what is happening in TLC navel gazing, but also these parasocial internet environments, because I think it's just unavoidable. Like people who want to just like revert to old school sincerity culture, I think are largely ignorant of media and the medium, and how that is going to change the world and has changed the world. This is the impulse of like the communists, or the people who want to go off grid, or just like go start their own thing, or homestead. Like the people that want to do that are people that are old school, like very traditionalist restorationists. They are craving the simplicity of older times. And I don't know that they were better, really. They're just different. And like, and I'm not judging anyone for doing that. If you want to do that, that's fine. I have some of those same sensibilities too. But I also think that like my kids are living in this world. They're not going to go and do that with me. I value my kids. I want to learn to live in the internet social media world in a way that is helpful I want to know how to be in the world, but not of the world. That's what I want to do. So that's what I want to talk about. Like how do we do community and discipline and not bullshit ourselves in this age? And what does that mean, and what does that look like? And then also I'll just end with this to say like truly, and PBK said this in one of his videos a while ago. He said like he mentioned me, and because he mentioned me and Sam in our conversation. He's like, Sam's trying to colonize people or get people to be Unitarians. Luke's trying to get people to be Universalists. No, I'm not. I'm really not. Please, God, believe me. Please. Inasmuch as I am self-aware, and you could tell me that I'm lying or I'm delusional, I'm not trying to convert people to universalism. I'm not. Am I very convinced of it? And do I have convictions about it? Yes. Do I think there are problems with other perspectives on hell and they're not internally coherent systems, to go back to that Gödel point? Yes. What I am trying to do, what I think is a good way of interacting with people, at least it's my mode. This is what I'm trying to do, is that I don't know that it should be explicit that TLC should have a discipline mechanism. I'm just saying it's inevitable. Bodies discipline. Bodies seek to discipline. To have a goal, to have a telos, to have an orientation is to have a directionality. And if people deviate from that directionality, the body's going to discipline, either explicitly or implicitly, consciously or unconsciously. It's just going to happen. So in as much as TLC is a body, it's going to be disciplining in some way. And now people would say that a lot of that is like it's not an explicit masculine form of discipline. It's a feminine form of discipline, either through social shaming of like implicit norms. Sure, but that's just going to happen. Okay. What I'm trying to do when it comes to ideas is again, it's the seed sowing thing. Whether or not I really believe the ideas that I profess, I don't even know. Peter Rollins will say that. Like, people ask me what I believe. I don't know. I think I know what I believe, but what you really believe is how you live. Real belief is embodiment. And so, do I really live like I love my enemies? I don't know. See what I do. Do I really believe that ideas matter? See what I do. I argue about ideas a lot. I do think they matter. I do think they are seeds. I do think ideas have consequences, but I don't forefront them. What I want to do is, this is what I want to do. I want to create spaces where people can be honest with themselves. Truly, that's the goal. I want spaces where I can be honest with myself, I want to treat people how I want to be treated. I want to be in spaces where I am most capable of being honest with myself, because I don't want to be a divided man. I don't want to be tossed to and fro by every wave of doctrine. I want to be an integrated person. I want to suppress the gnomic will. I want to submit to the divine will. I don't want to be caught up in like this, should I do this or should I do this? Or I don't know, or I can see that perspective, or I can see this perspective. I want to be holy, which I think means to be one with God. And a huge part of that to me is honesty, integrity. I don't want to lie to myself. I think the only tool that Satan has in his toolbox is deception. And if you don't lie to yourself, this is the whole Jordan Peterson thing of Dostoevsky. Above all, do not lie to yourself. And Jordan Peterson says, like, because when you lie to yourself, you poison your own organ of truth telling. It's not primarily about ideas to me. Like, that will take care of itself. Like, if I don't lie to myself and if I'm honest with myself, that stuff will come out in the wash. I want to create a space where people can be really honest with themselves. I don't want to psychoanalyze other people and tell them what they should do. You know who should tell you what you should do? Christ in you. God should tell you what you should do. You discern that from yourself. Will I influence you? Yeah. If you are, obviously, if you've clicked this link and you're listening to me, you have somehow chosen to be influenced by me in whatever way that hits you, positively or negatively. That's on you. Like, you do you. You make your choices. I don't want to make your choices for you. I don't want to tell you what to believe. I'm not an identitarian. Do I have my own strong personal convictions? Yes. Do I think they are right? Obviously, or else I wouldn't hold them. Do I think that you should hold them? I don't know. I really don't know, because what you see and hear depends a lot upon where you're standing and the kind of person you are. And I don't know what that is for you. I can't tell you what to believe. I really can't. I can tell you the transcendentals. I can't prescribe for you the particulars, because I think that's a radical implication of the incarnation. All right. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to open it up wide to the whole ocean, and people can come in. I was talking on and off, Matt, about church discipline, and I'll just look at comments. So I'm going to post this. I'm going to open it up. I would like to talk about what I want to talk about, of like mediums, technological mediums, and how that affects ideas, community, discipline, all that stuff. I set in my community somewhere the rules for engagement, which is try to listen a lot, try to ask questions as much as you're inclined to speak. Try to be concise in your speech as much as you can, and come from me, I understand that's rich. We'll try to keep it on topic. Critique ideas, not persons.
What's
And
up?
also, like, feel free to disagree. We'll try to do it well. What's up, Alex? Jess?
Hey, Alex.
What's up?
The only thing I want to say is I thought it was interesting in Philip Yancey's public comment. He said, how I behaved was contrary to what I believe and had written about.
Yeah, which is agreed, right? Exactly.
A heck
But
of a
that's-
thing to say.
But that's an exact example of a few things. Divided man. Obviously, he's divided, but he's also still in identitarian land as far as I'm concerned, because what he thinks he should think is what he thinks he believes. But clearly it's not, because he had an 8-year affair. So, like, what you believe is that, oh, I want to sleep with this person, and I think I love them, and I like them. That's what you believe, Philip Yancey. Do you maybe aspire to believe that other idea, which is a seed of someone that you possibly aspire to be in some part of you? Yes. But again, that's what I would say. That's not ultimately Christian, because incarnation is what you believe, not the ideas that you think you should think.
Yeah.
Anyhow, yeah, that's a great.
I hope, like, if
great
I
illustration.
got like publicly outed in some sin or something, I wouldn't say something like that. That'd be more embarrassing. I'm being too lighthearted about it, but like,
I mean, I don't know what I would say.
Like, I would hope. I mean, I would probably. What is the right thing to say in that moment then? Like, if I, like, obviously you want to just be like, I've sinned, I've done wrong,
I would say very little, probably. I would say I'm a liar, and I'm an adulterer, and there's some part of me that feels shame and hypocrisy in that, and I want to try to fan the flame of that part of me, because obviously it's not the dominant part of me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made these choices.
yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. That's honesty. And that's truly, like, that goes back to my point of what I'm trying to cultivate is a space of honesty. Because here's the thing. That's the only tool in Satan's toolbox, is self-deception. And if we didn't lie to ourselves, he'd be powerless. And that's truly, like, that's my biggest problem with confessionalism and identitarianism, is I think it's a lot of people thinking that they believe things that they're supposed to think when they don't actually think those things, when they don't actually believe those things, because we don't act in accordance with it. And I'm not saying I'm innocent of that either, but I am trying to be. So, I mean, I feel people play, like, I feel like there's so many conversations that I see out there. This is a large part of Christian YouTube to me, that, like, largely I just think it's complete bullshit. Like, it really is. I'm really not trying to colonize people with ideas. When I watch Christian YouTube and I see people out there that are doing, like, culture war stuff or trying to convince people of stuff, and sorry, I bring him up all the time. I'm putting you on blast, but, like, and this isn't a condemnation, like, of your character, because I don't know you, but, like, Gavin Ortland, it's just like your whole project to me is like a complete waste of time. Like, I don't think it's getting at anything substantively real. And so, like, and that very much, and that's, again, I'm criticizing an idea, and I'm criticizing the way that he goes about things, because I don't think it's the right way to go about things. But then again, like, if you disagree with me, fine. That you can disagree with me, but I think I posted something on X where I said, like, when does saying what you think, when is talking about something hurt, and when does it help? And I think it was Sartori who had a great response, and he said, when speaking what the truth helps, hearing the truth hurts. And I was like, that's good.
Yeah. What's up, Alan?
What's up, guys?
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys. Don't make me mad. I think this has been stirring up like a bunch of, I don't know. I feel like I've felt a bunch of thoughts stirring up of like with the decline of a lot of these institutions, and I think institutions are only falling further. But you're seeing the reemergence, like what PBK is talking about with Scott Adams, of like new Scott Adams has his own church and his own liturgy and his own, this and that, and I guess whatever. I don't want to make this like too grandiose or like but like the gift I think is that there's now like a freedom to choose differently than things have been in the past. Like I think it's um like this idea of like, oh, I just need to grow up and go to Harvard because my parents say so. Like those institutions just aren't. Oh, I need to grow up and become a pastor in the PCA church. Like that's just not a thing. Even if your parents are lifelong PCA members, like they don't care. Like in the same way, and like there's going to be a value of these first like these foundational, like what are you building upon, what's the rock on your group, what's the identity that you're building upon, and like are you capable of being honest? And I think a lot of people aren't honest because they're like, well, I need to be sincere to this culture, I need to like, or I need to like reify like, oh, I could never say that the Baptists have anything wrong because my great grandparents went to this church and my parent and my grandparents and my parents. And, I can't say anything against Harvard because my dad went to Harvard and he was the valedictorian. I can't say anything against Microsoft because I really want a job at Microsoft. And I mean, I can't support this fully, but like, as things transform, as things change, like, like, what do you're already in the desert. What are you going to do? Lie and be like, no, I will be loyal to the desert and we'll never leave the desert. It's like, well, eventually you're going to have to start building some shelters and building some like structures, and you got to choose what's the rock that you're going to build those things on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and the whole point about being in these spaces, online, technologies, you mentioned the media message and where we're at and how we see so many different institutions being built and being demolished at the same time. So it's like the power of influence has and is morphing still. And the whole concept of influence is that when you listen to somebody else, whether we know it or not, we have to calibrate whatever it is that they're saying, right? Does it match with what I know? Does it not match with what I know? How come it doesn't match what I don't know? So it's kind of like Daniel said when he was talking to Christian Baxter, Seabax. As far as the fish, they don't know. They don't know. The water is invisible, yet we can't escape it. And we can't escape this new paradigm that we live in, this communication overload, right? Signal versus the noise. And Luke, you were saying that, Gavin Ortland is doing it wrong. And then you were saying that somebody else was criticizing you, that you're trying to, lead people to universalism, etc. Again, this is because people hear and they interpret in their own way what they heard. Doesn't mean that it's correct. Doesn't mean that it's not correct. It doesn't mean that, that's the whole point about having to recalibrate. But the concept of we can choose any path, I would say, really? Because, we have to come to the conclusion, or maybe we should, that the destination does matter. So we do have to try to find out what values are and what values matter more, because we are going to come to a place where we do need to make a decision. Everything's a trade-off, and that's where we have to know exactly what it is we're doing and what values do we have, and if there is such thing as compromise, and the word is kind of heavy as far as the word compromise, but if we ever have to conflict resolution, if we have to kind of try to keep the relationship boundaries are good, right? And the concept of can't fight every battle, right? I can't push back on everything. At the same time, I can't just open all the floodgates. I can't let just everything go, because then you stand for nothing. But
Well,
All
I'm
that-
gonna miss a
I wonder
message.
if, like it's what you said, Lucas, but the consequence of technology, I was in the lack of being able to trust traditional systems of discipline and correction. So we've outsourced. Do we outsource discipline to the marketplace? And then we
I would argue that's what we're doing no matter what.
Yeah, I mean maybe. But is it more pronounced now because of the technology?
Yeah, I think it's becoming increasingly unavoidable because this is part of the problem. And then I want to hear what Claire has to say too, because I agree with you somewhat, Alan. A couple things that I would say is I'm not, again, we defaulted to like the objective game. I'm not telling Gavin Ortman what he's doing is wrong. I'm saying based on how I see the world and what I value, and I think the best way of interacting with this based on what I value, and if I had a conversation with you, I try to discern if that's what you value, I would say, then I don't think you're doing this right because you're playing an old school game of sincerity culture where you're trying to essentially in an implicit systematic way, you're trying to police ideas. But again, those are only seeds. You're going to continue having problems of like Philip Yancey and people who don't really apply those things because you're operating as if the world has different technological mediums that are like from hundreds of years ago, and you just haven't come to realize that yet. And so, and it's really hard to have that conversation because like I agree with you somewhat is like what you value really matters, but it's so hard to actually get there. And I want to try to illustrate it really quickly and then see what Claire has to say. By the way, Claire, I think I muted you because I could hear you typing. And this is back to what I was talking about with Sam. It's like the John 1:18 verse that like came up for me at Christmas where like it was a mistranslation. And I saw that. And then I was trying to have a conversation with some of the people in the church about that because this is the problem in this old Missouri Synod Lutheran church of like my in-laws. All those people say the creed. They think the Trinity is important. They think they're supposed to value all these things, right? But this is my issue is like, they don't even know what that means. If you would try to have a conversation with them, they have no idea what that means. Sam and I, people who are obsessed with the Trinity, when we have a conversation, we barely know what it means. We can't even really tell where we disagree. So like when you're trying to have a conversation about these things, because I was trying to walk through it of like why it was a mistranslation and how that relates to the Trinity and I could tell like I lost the people so fast. They have no interest in anything that I have to say. They are in a very old school sincerity culture where it's just like, I'm just told to believe the Trinity, so I say I believe the Trinity, but they don't even know what that means or what effect it has on their life.
Culture?
Sincerity culture is basically like it's pre-authenticity culture. So that's the way it's broken up. It's like sincerity, authenticity, prophilicity, which is very related to medium. So I would say sincerity culture is and these lines aren't completely clear, but it's like almost pre-Gutenberg. It's like old school. It's like a lot of the East is still very much sincerity, honor, shame culture, where like you can't even think of yourself separate from the whole. It's just like me, like what you go ask somebody in a sincerity culture, like a pure sincerity culture, what do you think about this? It's like they can't even, they'll just give you the answer. And we do that somewhat now in like an identitarian way because we think of, because we're in a weird mix of sincerity, authenticity, because we think we have, that's what's going on with like what I think I should think about these things is like, it's a weird mix of authenticity and sincerity. Because what you think you should think is what the sincerity culture thinks, my identity group.
Mm-hmm.
But then, and you think, I also think that thing. But the reality is you don't. Because when Philip Yancey like has an 8-year affair, he doesn't actually believe that. And he's showing you by what he does.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And we're in the middle of all that. But like, who even has a capacity? Like how do you talk to people about this? And that's not going to scale. Like somebody with like an 80 IQ isn't going to understand this stuff, Alex. So like, what does it mean to be holy then? You know,
That's a great question. But you know what? We can find a common ground because the soil does make a difference as far as how the seed and how the plant grows, right? The soil does matter. So there is believe it or not, Luke, there is commonality We just have to, how can I say this? We can agree to look at the same commonality, and within that same commonality, then start going as far as tell me your perspective based on this same commonality, and then I'll tell you my perspective on the same. So we're both looking at the same thing, and by that I mean you're. I don't care what your denomination is. I think of you as Christian first, right? PVK, same thing, Christian first. Denominations, that's like whatever. Gavin Ortland, first, Christian first. Now there's commonalities. You mentioned John 1 or 15, 1:15 or whatnot. What I would say, there's a discussion to have there. However, we can elaborate by looking into Colossians chapter 1, 2, and 3, which are great because they actually give you a little bit more on what is implied in John 1:15. Also Philippians, great additional information on the same topic that you guys were hashing out. Because like I said, that discussion about differences could maybe be had a little bit better if given the opportunity to discuss commonalities first. And then as long as we agree on the rules, it's like chess. Everybody knows the rules, and therefore they can have a decent game of chess, right?
But that's the problem, is I don't think, but that's really the thing. All these rules are implicit, and I don't think people really know the rules. They think they know the rules. Because even like when you said we are all Christians, I think you're defaulting somewhat to an identitarian category. Where like we all identify as Christians. Philip Yancey identifies as a Christian. He identifies as a leader Christian,
Right.
but until you find out he's having 8 years of adultery.
Right.
Like, we can't know all these people. I have
Yes.
no idea what Gavin Orland's real life
But
looks like. No idea.
Look, the commonality, you will quickly know that there's wheats and tares, and God is not going to intervene. He's going to let them grow together. And that's we can expect that. And it's not my job. I'm not the ultimate judge. And if they're deceiving me, to be honest, my salvation doesn't depend whether they're deceiving me or not, because I don't put my trust. My salvation is not whether they're Christian or not. My
I think it's
salvation
primarily deceiving himself,
Well, yeah, but like I said, that for me is like, okay, so he got away with deceiving people. Well, he's going to have to account for that. But I mean,
But Alex,
my salvation
sorry to
doesn't depend on what he does.
No, sorry to interrupt, but he's just an example. The whole point of this is like, I was wanting to talk about what are we doing,
Right.
and in this space, and for me, it's cultivating spaces of honesty, where
Right.
people can really be honest with themselves, not with others.
Right.
Because that's that virtue signaling, identitarian stuff, which I have no interest in.
Right. Right.
Like, I don't honestly, at the end of the day, like, I mean, I somewhat care if people believe me. I care if I'm lying to myself.
Right. So
Because that's
if you
what
allow me,
makes sense.
if you allow me 2 minutes,
Yeah.
when it comes to as far as authenticity, because we know propheticity is a thing, I can only change myself for better or for worse, and I cannot fix something that I do not understand. I'm just going to make it worse, right? So that's why I mentioned that the thing that I'm working on currently, well, one is be more like him and less like me. Imitate Paul the way he imitates Christ. So that's first thing. That's where I recalibrate where's my reality? Where's my identity in Christ, right? In the scriptures. Personally, because it's hard to play it out, like with my wife, what are we disagreeing on? What do we fight on with the kids? What is it that I can do better? That's when this topic that I mentioned about the four, where we have to take stock, because these are the things that affect me each and every day. And if I'm oblivious to frustration, right, to feedback, to temptation, introspection, if I'm oblivious to what I'm doing wrong in myself, in my mind, in my heart, in my actions, in my word, with my family, with my kids, with my coworkers, everywhere, I'm going to lose big time. And like I said, but I cannot change you, and I can't change anybody else. So I'm working on myself first. And what others do, yeah, you're right. They got away
then
with
how does
deceiving
that-
people.
So I want to ask you this question, Claire. I actually don't. I want you just to think about the question, and then we can maybe get into it later because I want to open this up for Claire because otherwise,
Yeah.
Because she's been waiting patiently and
Sure.
she's in here. But like, I agree with you. We should be working on ourselves. So then, but like, just pay attention to yourself and to other people in spaces like this, because like, really think about like, what does it look like to be paying attention to yourself and taking the log out of your own eye in these spaces?
Right.
Because it'll, like, you can tell, like, it's pretty
Right.
easy to tell. Self-righteous anger is probably one where you're not looking to take the log out of your own eye.
Well, you can tell by how we live our lives each and every day.
Sure, but in this space, it's, you know, it's difficult because that's the context of the discussion. Anyhow, Claire, what's up?
Yeah, I think when you talk about commonality, you're talking about minimum moral standards, right? You're saying, well, at least we're not criminals, we're not murderers, we're not frauds, we're not, you know, whatever that you can't be to be in this group. So
What group
I
are you
think,
talking about?
well, any group, you know, we could be, you know, a gang of pirates, so you can't join if you're not a pirate, or a bank robber, or whatever it is. And this is an identity issue, because Western men can't decide what they are, and therefore they won't know what to do. And this is, you know, very alienating. And I think it's because America hasn't got an official religion. I know this has been, you know, much debated. I know Justice Brewer, all those years ago, kind of said yes and no to the question of whether America is a Christian nation. And I suppose he was right in saying that the majority of Americans think of themselves as Christian. Therefore, we are a Christian nation. But on the other hand, we have separated the church from our state. So no one can say, you know, just because, you know, I go to church, I get to tell other Americans what to do. And it has to be the Constitution that is followed. And you know, and also I think the problem in Europe is most people are not Christian. They may claim to be Christian, but they don't really believe. And I think in frightening times, people want to claim a bigger group identity of, you know, than the one they currently have. And the phenomenon of Christian nationalism is basically updated white nationalism. They've sort of realized that, you know, being white racist is a very low position.
Okay.
And that's why they've upgraded.
But the context of this conversation is what we are doing in TLC in this like little band of flotilla misfits. And what Alex just said was the primary thing is changing myself and being honest with myself, which is what I also said that I'm trying to do, is cultivate spaces of honesty. And you're talking about like the Constitution and white nationalism and geopolitics.
Well, the honesty I'm trying to get people to understand is that religion is politics, right? You know, eventually, even if I go right now, you will be discussing something political, because the religious and the political are inextricably linked. And what you're saying now as Christians, like, what does it mean to be Christian? What are Christian principles? You know, how should Christians behave? These are, you know, very vague ideas, and none of you can agree. Yeah. I mean, I would say you can be
we agree politically?
I'll still be Christian.
We agree politically?
No, we might agree that it's wrong to kill babies for fun, for example, but that's a very low standard of morality, right? We might say we shouldn't encourage a culture of casual sex or whatever.
But Claire, the devil's always in the details about those things. So like, here's the thing. I don't want to go into the political conversation. I narrowly define the range of where I want to have this conversation. I said we could, like, you and OG Rose would maybe have a great conversation about how everything is necessarily political. And the way that he's talking about it, I somewhat agree with it. Although if I were to go into that with my convictions of like Christian anarchism, I'm going to talk about that in a way that's very different and probably not compatible with the way you would want to talk about that. But I don't want to talk about that right now.
Well, I hope you support a conversation between him and me, because I really would like to talk to him, but I suspect that he wouldn't like to talk to me. And this is a prediction. I haven't, communicated with him, but yeah, that would be interesting. But maybe I haven't answered your question, so perhaps you'd like to repeat it,
It's
so I
more,
can be on topic.
right, or Jess or somebody could try to say it in a way better than I could say it. My main question is related to this online space that we are in the TLC with this emerging. Lance, I think you could probably add yourself, but I'll just add you. With this emerging community and how that affects the evolution of consciousness and what you see in here and identity and group formation. Is that what I'm trying to argue is that I think there's a lot of ways that people think of and conceive of their own identity that I think is probably bound to ancient technological mediums that aren't the world that we're operating in anymore. And so like all these people will talk about church discipline and like the way that Philip Yancey's talking about it and stepping away from leadership. I'm like, you're talking like it's 500 years ago, dude. Like it's not true. And we can know it's not true because of like an illustration of like, what's the Mars Hill guy, whatever, Mark Driscoll, right? Like they did church discipline. I listened to all the podcasts of all the backstory. They tried to do church discipline. He just left without ever accepting church discipline. And now he's a pastor somewhere else doing his other thing. And he can do that because of planes, trains, and automobiles and the internet. And so like, talk about church discipline all you want. Like we have options that sincerity culture people didn't have anymore. And that's just
what's sincerity culture?
Sincerity culture is like
telling the truth.
Didn't I say this to Jess already once?
Sincerity culture. You haven't told me, so I'm a little.
I know, but were you in the stream? You've been posting the whole time. Maybe you weren't listening.
Well, do you just mean saying what you mean? Is that what you mean?
No, sincerity culture is like collectivist culture. It's people that like haven't yet developed a sense, like a separate sense of self and authenticity and individualism. Where like the group that I'm in thinks this, but I think this a little separate from the group. People that are hardcore sincerity culture are like honor shame cultures, where they almost can't think of themselves separate from the group.
So you're talking about the difference between a true believer and a free rider. Is that?
No. I think it has nothing to do with being a true believer. It's just a different cultural thing. There's true believers in sincerity culture. It's just to almost say that is to say like that's to presume that authenticity culture is better. It's just different.
Okay, I don't know what authenticity culture is either.
It's individualism.
I would immediately think it's saying what you mean, but obviously it is.
Saying what you mean is a complete authenticity culture thing to say. A sincerity culture person wouldn't even say that, because what I mean is what the group I'm in means.
Okay, so what is this group?
They don't even have I. Like, what do I think about this? I don't even know. I don't even know what I is.
Are other people allowed to say who they are and why they are the way they are?
Sure, Claire, but that's all authenticity culture thing. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying like this is the whole point of like my illustration of the John 1:18 verse in the Trinity and having a conversation with my wife's Missouri Synod people. If I try to ask them what they think about that, they have no idea.
Yeah, because they don't even understand the question or the point of it.
Yes.
I don't know what you're getting at. I mean, obviously,
Sure.
I'm answering all the wrong questions, and that's why maybe you want to let Lance speak, but I don't think we've got any further. And my problem is the way you use language. You use it to confuse everyone, and
that's a judgment.
Yeah, it is a judgment, and I think you do it on purpose because you want to speak out of both sides of your mouth.
Okay, well, that's a rule on the channel, Claire.
I know you're going to be kicking me now. Yeah, because you're wasting time, and it's your.
Okay, Claire. Here's the thing. That's a rule on the channel, because here's the thing. Whether or not I can know my own motivations is one thing. So you can't do that.
I sincerely appreciate your authenticity, Luke. I just want you to know that.
Thank you, buddy.
And while I have the opportunity, I'll throw this out there just to keep the flow going. Purpose is it should be something desired, but maybe the proper purpose. And that I don't have the answer to what. But the Christians were like, well, I think I have an idea what proper purpose might be. But purpose without structure will lead into chaos. So we need a little bit. We need you always need something to work with. Because if you have no identity, if you have no ethics, no values, no morals, no goals, no purpose, and no structure, you're gonna end up in chaos. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I think that we're all, but like this is why I talk about personalism and that the person is the unity of all of our relations. And I think of it in terms a lot of like Rupert Sheldrake and Morphic Field. So like part of what makes up my personhood is think of any identity marker that I could relate to myself. I'm American. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a Christian. I speak English. I live in Minnesota. I grew up in this place. These are my parents. All of those things make up who I am and what I see and hear.
Right.
Because that's my contextualness. And so like you can't, this is partially also why you can't judge anyone else, because if proper knowledge involves initiation, you technically do not know what it is to be them because you haven't been initiated in all their situatedness. That's why truly only God can judge me. Only a holy person can judge you because they're not judging. Then this goes for me too, I think. Anyhow, Lance, you have more to say? Alan, Jess?
I don't know. I keep thinking about like this sort of progression I had in my own life, like growing up, like when I was a kid, you'd mostly want to just be in agreement with the group, with whatever's cool. Like I remember being in 6th grade and everyone was crazy about New Kids on the Block. And I said, I like New Kids on the Block. And I remember it as an example of like, I do not like them at all. And I'm only doing this. I'm only saying this because of that. And I feel the shame of it even to this day.
There's so much of that, but like there's unconscious and conscious times we do that. Like
but that was when I realized I was like, oh, I don't believe this. And I'm saying this for this reason. Like I came to that realization, like what sparks that realization? I have no idea because it just sort of came upon me. And then I was thinking of like, as I got older through like middle school and high school, and even after high school, there would be guys either older than me or my age that I thought were thoughtful, philosophic. The line made me feel weak. Yeah. And I would I would first like imitate them. Like if they would say something thoughtful in a contrary way, I would look for ways to be contrary in different situations. Like not because I actually believed it, but because I was like, that's what this kind of guy would do. He would say something contrary in this situation. And I guess like when I think about that, I'm like, oh, it could be mistaken as individualism because I'm like going against, let's say, whatever the sincerity culture was in the group, or it could be me trying to speak truth, but it might just be me imitating someone being contrary, who I thought was,
dude,
maybe when I'm thinking about them, I'm like at that moment they were right and true and correct in what they did, but in the moment that I was doing it as an imitation that has nothing to do with what was true or real. And so okay, then did I realize that, or am I still doing it? Who knows? Like
yeah,
it starts like folding in on itself.
But the fact that you're asking, the fact that you're
yes,
looking, the fact that you're inquiring, hey, that shows maturity there. So
well, this is kind of my point, is because you can then imitate being authentic. And maybe it's a good thing that you imitate it, because like how else are you going to be able to do it? But can you get good at it where you're not actually saying what you think, but
well, we can't sit still.
Authentic ones.
We can't sit still. If we stand for nothing, it's not going to end well. We have to work with what we have. There's always room for improvement. There's always, you know how many times I run into people that are much wiser than me? Countless. And you know how many books are out there from people that are wiser than me? Countless. And the scriptures filled with advice. That's, you know what I mean? So there's room for growth. definitely room for growth, but we shouldn't just give up because
I mean, but just like
Because
looking
it's
at the
hard.
growth process, I'm just like, it's so embarrassting.
well, yeah,
It-
yes, yeah,
it's
and yeah,
and then like at least like when I'm reflecting on that, I'm just like, I have no idea how to. So like going from one thing to the other. Let's say how do you? There's the friend of mine that always it's always movie and TV references. You can't have a deep conversation with them for the life of you. You bring up something that has like 1 inch of depth, and it gets derailed into just sort of like, oh, did you see this TV show? And part of me is like, how do I, like, do you just say, you like, I don't want to talk about TV shows, you moron? or do you be nice to them in the, like, most of the time I'm just like, I entertain the conversation for a minute, but I'm like dying inside because I'm like, if I hear another person telling me about the last 5 episodes of whatever that I haven't seen, that doesn't, and I'm just like, I'm trying to show that I'm disinterested and they're not getting the clues.
Yeah, no, that's all really good. Something I wanted to say, I very much agree with that because I'm always like, this is what I awkwardly say when I first meet people, and that why they tell me like I'm awkward is all like my opening conversation with most people is like, tell me like the thing that you're most ashamed about. You know, like, I'm just,
Yeah, but how do you
like, they're
get
just
that
like, I'm
friend
just
that's
get at
only
it.
talking about movies to like actually say something authentic? Because
That's
they
the
afraid to
benefit of
death,
like,
and
yeah.
probably when they did do it, they were punished for it in some way or another. And you can't have the conversation because they're just like, I was punished for this. I'm not going to ever do it again, and I'm just going to talk about TV.
No, I agree. There's so many things going on. There's sincerity culture stuff. This is why my wife's family looks at me like I'm an alien. Because they're just like, don't. I remember when I first started dating her and I was like hanging out with their family, and her younger brother, I probably told this illustration, was going through his Lutheran catechism where he was just learning the script and like, this is the prompt, you say this is the prompt, you say this. And I was all fired up because I was like young, restless, and reformed. And I was just like, this is sweet, let's talk about this. And I was asking all sort of questions, and he just looked at me and he was just like, what are you doing? He's like, no, and he essentially was like, no, they say this, I say this, and then we like eat cake in the garage. Like, no, we don't do that. And I was like, oh, okay. Which to me at the time, like, I was very judgmental of it, but now like I get it. It's just a different thing. But I'm talking to you guys about like, what are we doing in light of that? Like, I'm not judging that for like it's wrong. It has its place. There are no solutions. There are just trade-offs. I'm not better than that. That's just very different. But what is this emergent thing? Like, I'm interested in the vanguard, man. I'm interested in what's coming.
Yeah, I think the thing that is, as I watch this, you know, so when Jess and I were putting together our KC estuary and we had the little documents that we stole, listening to Paul and other people and so on and so forth, is that we're creating a space for good faith conversation and a place for people for sense making, right? And Jess said something really good in a BOM voice chat one time. Because I was talking about, I had all these tumblers and some things came together, and it was like, kind of once you have a revelation, like you're never going to, like, you'll now know something that like you're just changed at that moment. And Jess said, well, that's healing, you know, because if your gears are grinding and you're doing those sorts of things. So that seems to be what we're doing here. The challenge that I think everyone's kind of grappling with is, and so if you would go out and look at, like, let's just say 12-step groups or whatever, like they have created, it wasn't the very first meeting they had, but they ultimately had these traditions where they're realizing, hey, in order to keep this group connected and together, there have to be some kind of like baseline things that we're all going to agree to. And they talk about, like, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on AA unity. They realize that, hey, this thing is so fragile, and we're also dealing with such broken, like, people who like to go in and burn bridges and blow everything up, like and we're egomaniacs, and like all the bad stuff that happens, they needed to do that. And then there's a purpose. Like, so for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. Because they realize as soon as, so this is you, Luke, as soon as you start creating like those governing things, everyone wants to be the president of AA, and then you're going to do, nobody's going to be president around here. Okay. So quit trying to run for president. Right. But it has a primary purpose to carry its message to alcoholic who still suffers, right? So it creates these things. Hey guys, this is what we're coming in around, right? So you were talking about bounded set and center set, but and so I struggle with this when I think about what this thing is here, or as PVK is really looking at what like Scott Adams did, which I think people would be really surprised at what Scott Adams did, because he's just the Trump guy on X or whatever. No, he actually mentored a lot of people, and he had a locals community where people were actually meeting offline and carrying on the conversation. They were doing local meetups. Now after his death, they're posting all those things. He has people that are carrying on. They're calling it the Coffee with Scott Adams. I can't remember what they're calling the meeting. And there are people in boxes that are talking about things. Like he came after he was at its core, it was a meaning. People were coming to him around a meaning crisis thing, and he helped them think and how to put some things together. And then they wanted to talk more. So they started gathering around each other, and they were having that. And just like Paul, he wanted people, hey, pick up this torch, guys. There's only one of me. Why don't you guys carry it? And so on and so forth. But as I think about what that group is, like at some point, you have to join something, and then you have to join something, even if you don't agree with all the things at the time that the people believe. So one of the big things that happens in 12-step groups is like, they're like, hey, here's the deal. You think you know everything, like things have not been going well for you. So how about you just shut up and try and do this thing for a bit and do what we do? Well, I don't want to do that. Okay, good. How's that working for you? And so that's the challenge in these sorts of groups, at least in a church. Hopefully there's a centered set, and the centered set is on Christ, right? It's like, okay, we got this thing that we're all coming around. And I think with the atomization of individuals, and then also the atomization of churches. Well, if I don't really I don't like what Bob said on the elder board, where half of us are going to go over here and start our new thing, and we're going to do this. And it might be as dumb as worship music and the worship leader, or it could be over infant baptism. I don't care. It's just all this atomization stuff. And that's what you're, Luke, talking about, Luke, because people can just go and move and whatever. But that's the reality of what we live in.
Yeah.
And so, until people want to really be able to surrender something. So like Luke, you talked about the Lutherans or whatever. And so you're experiencing that in the Orthodox Church, right? Which is for some people, if they just go and they just do the things, and they don't have, like, my mom is like, I just believe and I do the things, and she doesn't question. It's okay for her. And you know what drove her crazy? A son like me that asked all the questions. Luke, can you relate? It's like, dude, can you just quit asking questions about everything and just do the thing? No, I want to ask this question. Why is this that? And what's this that? I don't agree with this. And it's just kind of like, it's okay for her to be her, and it's okay for me to be me. And so it's interesting. And I don't know. I don't have the answer. I've been thinking about it on the outside looking in. Is what we're doing here. It could be just as much, as long as we keep the good faith conversation and the space for meaning open. That's kind of the only central tenet. Like, that's the main central tenet. And over time, maybe some traditions will develop, but I don't know how you can create those binding things. But something's working, because this is what, 7 years now people have been doing it? 8?
I think it's got to be. I mean, I don't like, TLC is pretty allergic to the hardcore emanation, making everyone do the rule-based things, which is why it drives those people crazy and they end up leaving. It's like this emanation emergence thing. But okay, so here's the thing. We got 3 more new people. I want to let them talk, hear what they have to say. I know Matt's been thinking about this stuff a lot. Matt and Claire need to have a conversation about secular Coranism. But I got about a half hour in me. So that's where we're at, people. All right, let's let the newbies talk and see where we're at.
Yeah, I I mean, so much of what Lance brought up was really helpful. Because Lance is similar to a lot of us, I think, in high in openness, verbal processing, like to hear these things discussed in a complex way, and we don't think of complexity as a problem to solve, where we permit them and we kind of get excited about that complexity and just kind of explore the contours, extemporaneously. And importantly, Lance also knows that it's okay to not be that way too. And like his mother and like a lot of people in our lives, and we're not, I think we get ahead of ourselves if we think we're collecting a lot of like-minded personality types as some kind of like emergent new cultural dynamic force that's going to change the world or something. That's probably not what's happening. What's probably happening is that people who like to process a certain way are discovering each other, that's enormously helpful and beneficial and healthy. But it doesn't mean that we're like the next evolutionary step, I think, just because we don't like authenticity as much as our parents. You know what I mean? Like it just to twist it just a little bit more. Like I'm thinking, I get like catechesis in a Lutheran setting would be challenging, I think, for a lot of us, because we want to process verbally, and we want to explore, we want to ask questions, and we don't necessarily need to have the answer provided to us, and that could be challenging. The same thing could happen in divine liturgy. Like if I walked up in the middle and started trying to say, well, let me tell you what I think about the Eucharist. In the middle, like you'd say, no, there's a time and place. It's not right now. You're actually supposed to just you're supposed to, I say this and then you say that. That's every church service. That's okay. And I wonder about the sort of things, maybe even Claire Call would find this interesting, but I wonder the sort of things that we explore if we're not careful to think about the sort of things that I think a lot of the leaders here understand about AA, and someone like myself does not understand as well. If I don't understand those principles that AA has kind of figured out well, then I might start to think that all public spaces and all spaces that are important and have value and generate meaning have to be verbal processing environments and have to be sort of these open spaces where we never have rules or order. We're never, we have to issue authenticity. We have to issue sincerity, and we all have to really conform to my personality type. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I worry about that. And I think AA doesn't do, they understand those pitfalls. It sounds like it's a tested and true kind of format. Estuary understands that, to its enormous credit, because it's only been around a few years. And I think TLC intuits that. It doesn't, maybe we just have varying success about how to articulate it. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah,
just
a lot of great stuff in there, man.
Yeah, just real quick on that, Matt. That's one thing with sort of a certain personality type, like Jay Dye. Like there, new atheist debates, like certain personality types. Not just that subject. You can see it in any place, but that type where they claim like, oh, this is logically perfect, but then they are really just saying, no, you have to believe the way I believe. Like if I say, hey, come over to my house, let's play checkers, and someone comes over and then they're like, no, we're going to play chess because chess is so much better. And I have all these facts and reasons as to more people enjoy chess. People who play chess live longer and are happier than people who play checkers. But you just broke the rule because I invited you over to my house to play checkers. And now you're just like flipping the table and being like, no, logically, we're going to play chess because I have this argument to play chess. And I refuse to play checkers. It's like, okay, that's fine that you have that argument, but you already broke the presupposition of respecting my boundaries of I invited you over and you agreed to play checkers with me. And I think that the only thing I'm going to say is but they're forcing oh, there can be no boundaries. I respect your personal boundaries, zero. It's all the argument. It's all the facts. It's all the reason. And you could tell, you know, I could lie to you a million times and it doesn't matter as long as I have a logical argument as to why I lied.
Which is the
Um,
boundary. That's the implicit like urban monoculture rule is like this is the game we're playing, which is facts and logic game.
yeah,
I don't
and I'm
give a
not
shit what
allowed
your
to.
game is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not allowed to be like, no, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this other thing. It's like, well, that's because you're stupid, and I don't respect your stupidity, so I'm going
And
to
you're
force you to.
intentionally obfuscating and lying and talking out of both sides of your mouth. Damn it. All right, Scott, what's up?
Okay, so I took some notes. I'm thinking as we all do our best efforts, as fallible as they are, to embody Christ, we bring that into this space. And I think that Christ is using all of us to give a picture of the whole that none of us will ever be able to fully obtain. And through us, he's invading this space, right? The whole internet space, much like he did through the church fathers invading the literary space and using the Gutenberg. And then that's that beautiful thing where Christ uses the new technology to manifest himself into the world. And I think that's what's happening through this gateway right here. Second point was the sincerity culture, authenticity culture, and what was the third? I can't remember the third.
Profilicity.
Profilicity. So maybe us seeing those previous models, they're being tested in the new media, on the new canvas. And we're seeing whether they're going to comport with our new way of painting. And so we have to retest them. And that's what we're seeing. And maybe that's something that Paul was pointing to in homeroom, is that it's interesting how people are gaining something from it. Because you can't deny necessarily the good that Scott was able to do, I guess. I didn't pay much attention to him, but what I've gotten from the summaries in homeroom today, that's my sense of it, is that there was some good there. And so what do we keep from that old that we're going to bring into the new? And then to Jess's point, he's not here earlier, but like when you're getting stuck with the Game of Thrones and you haven't seen it and whatever stuff, I usually try to take the conversation to somehow ask the question, what is your favorite mythological creature? And in that, I have found that it's very telling how we are based on our favorite mythological creature. And then that gives you the opportunity to kind of peel back their walls and take a look at the GUI center and go, oh, I like that. So those are my points.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That was good. I appreciate that. And also Olson said he's a fan. So look at that. You already have a fan, Scott. Good work. Ian, what up? What up, my man? You're one of, listen, people, you want to I need to schedule a conversation with you. Hold me accountable. I'm making it public. OG Mike, I need to have a conversation with you. I'm sorry. It's like live streams are easier. Like scheduling other conversations are complicated because schedules. Okay, Ian, what up, buddy? Like and subscribe. Insight Incorporated.
All right. I'm a little under the weather, so I feel like a little foggy. But the thing that I've been thinking about a little bit, talking about on my channel, is the need for connectedness to God. And so I think, like, how many of us 6 here on screen are Christians? Like, it looks like, yeah, all of us. And so that's an interesting aspect of the TLC, is like there's a large contingent. PVK obviously has a huge role in fostering this community. And so there's some aspect of Christianity that bleeds through apart from any doctrine, I guess. And we have this like crossover between everybody, a little bit of what Scott was saying. I was like, oh no, he's taking my stuff. But there's like there's a picture of this mosaic of the body of Christ where we all come together and form what is that sort of positive egregore. And it's, I think it's only effective to the extent that we're connected to the vine. So we're branches and we're connected to the vine. And in that, just a couple of things. It's mimetic. I think that we imitate others as they imitate Christ. And that's what Paul said. And I think that that still holds true, although just anecdotally, I don't ever meet anybody that doesn't qualify that with some sort of like, ooh, geez, like I sure hope not, like don't imitate me. Like, okay, I mean, whatever, like that we're human, just like they were human. And so that's an important aspect of this. So when it comes to like, I can't see the title of this video, but it's like identity and ideas and community
discipline.
Yeah. So when it comes to discipline, I've been thinking along the lines of like John Mark Comer for the past 3 or 4 years, like that discipline and discipleship, these things are like related, but then we don't connect any of this living as Christ to any type of discipleship. So discipleship is sort of like turned into more of a propositional endeavor where it's like the catechesis that you were talking about in PCA, or it's really everywhere. It's like, well, we think this stuff, so you say it back to us. And then that's certification and verification. I think Daniel Garner was talking about that recently, maybe with CBACs. And I think that the certification and verification is very much more like the way that humans try to aggregate rather than the way that Christ organically forms his body. And so I think that the TLC is a space where the like-minded come together and attempt to imitate the ones that we're like, it's sort of like learn how to be this part of the body, but we're very much like the yeast or some sort of like hormonal gland in the body analogy. Like we don't we aren't the arms, the hands, the feet, all these major body parts that we think of, but much more granular than that. And we need to participate within our communities in that way. And I think one thing that I found is it's difficult in the same way Lance said, it's difficult like with his mother, or Luke, you said with your wife's family. I'm finding that with my wife's family, like I'm just scary, like the openness is terrifying because I just want to talk about what's real. And like, I think that it is real for them, the way that they interact with these systems and propositions. And it has been effective for them, but it is limiting in some way on the personal and relational level. And so that's where I see Christ. Okay, this is kind of rambly, like I said it would be, but I see the church as sort of like a top-down effort to imitate Christ. And then I see Protestantism as the bottom up, but then you get all these different subjective versions of Christ, and so it's like, how do we make those things meet in the middle? I don't know, but I think that you will know them by their love was the verse that was coming to my mind. And like, whether or not this conversation is political or theological or whatever it is, it's like if it isn't had in good faith, if it isn't towards loving one another, like caring for one another, bringing out more of who a person is through Christ or in Christ, then you start to recognize like, oh yeah, that you're not playing the same game. And so I was reading Matthew 18 to sort of like frame this, because we were talking about the church discipline stuff. Like, well, church discipline has become this thing of like in or out of the group. And in a way that's true. I think of it more of like, if you're participating within the kingdom of God and the eternal kind of life that he has on offer, that's a very different game. And so just like chess and checkers, it's like, well, you can come over, but we're not going to play your game. And so then like, I'm going to treat you like a tax collector doesn't mean I'm going to be mean to you, or I'm going to, intentionally exclude you and make you wish you had what I have. I can't do anything about what you want, but I can do everything about what I'm doing. And who I'm doing it with. And so I just think like taking responsibility on that level for the way we spend our time in our lives and our energy, I think that's where it comes into play. So like, I think it's fine to participate in any form of Christian gathering or activity or whatever, but like the goal is always to be more connected to Christ or more imitative of Christ. And I don't know, that's what I got.
Nice. Thanks. I think a lot was great. I don't want to interject too many comments. What up? The man, the myth, the legend, Paul Renee Nichols. What up, buddy?
So I missed the bit of your monologue on discipline. So I don't know if you can give me a quick synopsis of where you were at, because that's sort of what I was interested in.
Okay. I'll try to. I think a lot of it, I'm realizing in this stream that I should probably just do a stream and probably with someone else so that I don't ramble too much on sincerity, authenticity, prophilicity, because that's a big contextual backdrop for a lot of this. And I think the cultural evolution of all those things. But a lot of the context was PBK's homeroom and Philip Yancey having an affair and stepping away from ministry, and what does it mean? What does it look like to do discipline in a modern age, considering the evolution of mediums and how that has affected those different cultural ways? Because like we don't live in a sincerity culture, honor shame culture anymore. So like you discipline someone and you kick them out of church community, but they can just drive across town and go to a different church, or they can go online, or there's different, what does it mean to do discipline in a body and the inevitability of discipline, because it's going to happen.
I mean, I don't think it's a matter of technology.
Okay.
Like the Greeks had steam engines. They could have built locomotives if they wanted to. I mean, they had iron, but they didn't. So the availability of technology and what you do with it are separate things. So that's one part.
You don't think we have more choices for the bodies in which we can choose to participate now?
I mean, technically, yes, but I think this all comes down to there's a specific idea that is in all of us at this point. I think just about everyone in the world, that we're individuals and that we should be seeking out our personal happiness and we should be fulfilling our dreams. And I not only do I think that that's wrong, I think that that's pernicious. And at the foundation, that's what's destroyed community. That's what's destroyed the extended family. That's what's destroyed the nuclear family. And that's what drives church shopping. I've been playing with it. I've been out of this. Like, I haven't appeared on anything. I may have my own YouTube channel soon where I engage with this stuff. We'll see. But I've been thinking about community and church. And my conception is church is an epiphenomenon of community. Church is never itself really a community. It's at best an epiphenomenon of the community. What we have now in churches is there may be small cliques or small communities within a church, but it's not like there's this community on top of this is a church. And discipline is ultimately a communal thing. And this is a phrase which is antagonistic to the toxic individualism of our modern age for the last 500 or 600 years. Know your place. Now, if we're going to talk about the body of Christ, like, if you don't know your place in that body and you're not sticking to that place and you're not doing your thing, that's a problem. And we don't even believe that we have a place, that we have a particular role, that we have obligations. We think in terms of rights and my own personal happiness and stuff like that. And so having railroads in the 19th century or highways and cars now, and jet airplanes and whatnot, that makes it very convenient to exit. Like the libertarians talk about voice and exit, that one way to have a say in what's going on is to like vote, which I don't believe in, but sure. The other thing is to just leave. But that the ability to leave is actually, that's part of the acid that's breaking everything down. Like, as someone who got married for a very short period of time and divorced, marriage and community only works if you can't leave. And that is true, Ethan. And apparently he also wasn't happy with my snoring. So, but we've allowed exit to happen. Like, I've got all these Californians in Texas now. Not that Texas is like a real place. States don't really mean anything anymore. It's just a way to address mail to me. But people aren't staying in California to fix things if they can get out. And that's a huge problem. So I think, and to call back, Luke, to your like I don't want to tell you what to believe. That to me, that rings true. That rings the same as like, well, I don't want to push my beliefs on my kids. Do we want legacy? Do we want community? Is there absolute truth? Like, either there is or there isn't. So
I'm on team isn't.
Okay, well then, but if God, then absolute truth. If not God, then no absolute truth.
Yeah, that's a separate conversation. I think truth is a person. It's not a rational modernist category.
I'm not saying it's a rational modernist category.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to go into it. We don't have enough time to have that conversation. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
That's still an absolute.
Christ is absolute. And if
I don't want to have that conversation right now. We don't have time. I have 8 minutes. Paul Allen needs to speak and Seabax need to speak. All right.
Paul, I'm going to reinforce what you were saying. So basically, I think your focus, Luke, has been on the outgroup, like discipline, sort of as a retaliatory thing. Is it really a punishment? If you Ian was talking about the vine and the branches, the top of the passage in John 15, it's talking about the vine dresser pruning. And why do we prune? I have these orange trees, and you prune so that the yield, so that the energy of the tree is going into the parts that are producing fruit. And and if you have the energy of the institution around somebody's affair that is not producing fruit, that needs to be pruned from the tree so that the community can refocus on its good fruit for that institution. So I think, as in that sense, discipline pruning is an in-group phenomenon. It's an immune function that preserves and strengthens the in-group. Now, having been pruned before in various settings, when you're on the sidelines, you learn that, that is not a behavior that I can have in a group. So that if you're a reflective person, you can like take that to the next thing and come to realize I need to be better in these ways so that I am not, because pruning is really bad. It hurts a lot more than I thought. Even if I can land on my feet, I don't don't think I need to adjust my behavior so I am not pruned. So I think it can have that disciplinary effect, even if you find your feet, because you're sucking the life out of the institution by your bad behavior. So you got a really great girlfriend from your church environment, and you were able to sustain that by your position of power. And isn't that awesome? And now I'm less important in a different setting, and I don't have that power. I don't have that capacity. And now everyone kind of thinks I'm a schmuck. I don't know if we're allowed to use that word, but but I think there's I think you are, once you are pruned, then you can enter your new community and realize, oh, there's consequences to how I behave in here. And so I think that the in-group and out-group thing, I have a lot more to say, but I'm going to save it for other times and other places.
Nice. Thank you. No, there's a lot there. There's so much, like, you could have another 2-hour conversation on like what every person who comes in here has to say. But Seabax, what up?
Is Ian gonna go?
Ian already went once. He left and came back in to try to trick everyone so he could have another speaking slot.
Man, oh man, I can't really. I could talk a lot about church discipline, improving, honor, shame, consequence, repentance, all that stuff. But the thing that seems salient, and this is kind of related to PBK's homeroom stuff too, around these same kind of topics, but is like, there's that R.C. Sproul's church left the PCA because PCA wasn't complementarian enough. So they just left. It wasn't a discipline thing, but there was maybe some kind of discipline happening there. I don't know. It's kind of murky. I haven't followed all the details, but it's interesting, like institutions versus, whatever personalities, or like when Saddleback left SBC, like for similar reasons, but it's like, who discipline, and those different ecclesiologies have different versions of discipline, if they have them at all at that level or whatnot. But there's just an interesting relationship. Earlier on in the conversation, Luke, you brought up Mark Driscoll's exit from Mars Hill and just going somewhere else, and then Paul Renee was talking about, and you also mentioned trains, planes, and automobiles, but like this dissolution of something thick. There was something thick and meaningful, related to how important like church really is, or is it just like abstraction or a sliver of your life that's convenient? And there's also questions of consumerism related to just like, I just go consume this thing. And I liked Paul's point on Paul Renee's point on community is church like, is it an epiphenomenon on top of like some thick community? And you think about these phases. Like when I was in my undergrad in biblical studies, we talked about different church sizes, and there's the family church, and then there's the small church, and then there's the mid-sized church, and like people write books about these things, and this one's, you got to be a rancher, and this one you got to be a they have all these metaphors, and really at the end of it, it's like, there's a point where every organization of some kind moves into levels of abstraction. And at what point, when you have, say, 500, 600, 800, 1,000 people, does discipline really make sense? Like, I think in certain situations it might. Like in the hypothetical, certain kind of maybe even ethnic related churches, like in certain versions of Orthodoxy and even Old Catholic, like this is where the Irish go and this is where the Polish go. And like, you would be losing something because you can't just go to the Irish church if you were a Pole or something like that.
Yeah, that's the sincerity culture stuff.
Yeah. And we're now into this, what does it mean in a thin multiculturalism related to some of these things? I think too is that those things are real, and those authenticity or sincerity, they're real. Whether we want to, whatever we want to say about them, they're real. They have different kind of, it's a different kind of culture. And so we're, navigating, and I think Paul's point on, he uses Beth Moore as that archetype of like had more influence in the SBC than most SBC pastors, and she was a woman and all this kind of stuff. And what does that mean? And what does it mean that where we're at? What does it mean? I just had a 3-hour conversation with Bob the Baptist. Should be out Monday. Plug CBYT.
Is it going to trigger me?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think if you're gracious, if you like see somebody on a journey.
I'm not. CVAX.
So, but we're talking. Someone was like, "Hey, if you really," they're talking about his YouTube channel, and this is so apropos to what PVK was talking about. He's like, they were like, you really should think about your profile picture looking more dignified for if you're going to run a ministry. And he's like, I don't even think this is a ministry.
Yeah. What is a ministry? Words that fudge.
And this is round 2 of me doing social media in my life. One was an official ministry. And, I have a lot of reasons why I don't do certain things, because when I tried to run it like a ministry, which looks a lot like an entrepreneurial endeavor, like it gets really messed up. So anyways, that I said a lot there, but.
All right. I'm gonna do my closing words, and then people can do closing words. Try to keep it to like under 2 minutes would be ideal. All right. Maybe a little bit more, but just try to be cautious of that, because I want to get out of here. I think a lot of this too, my closing word would be, because I was thinking about this, even with like Paul, Renee, and I'm guessing, and someone said that, Neil said this in the comments. He's like, here's the like left and the right side of the Orthodox Church. I never really, I don't know, people see me as left. It just blows my mind. I'm like, you don't know me that well if you think I'm left, but I'm left. I'm not a rigorist. I'll say that. So like, I love this quote from Charles Williams, The Descent of the Dove, where he says, the rigorous view is vital to sanctity. The relaxed view is vital to sanity. And I think those are just poles we're always dealing with. Those happen in everybody. They happen in ourselves. The rigorist is always wanting to go back. It's the hardcore traditionalist. Like, let's just do what worked before in the same way. But to me, that's identical replicationism. It's not
faithful innovation.
It's not faithful innovation. I don't think it's going to work. It's romanticizing the past. And I think it's rooted in a certain salience hierarchy of a temperament, I think. So that's my closing perspective. So many more conversations I could have. Suggest them in the comments. Who wants to go next?
All right, I guess I'll give it a go. So, I know that we do live in a attention economy with what we have, and we now have AI that can talk to you, and it is talking to a lot of people. But I am grateful for the experience that I've been having. I became a Christian a while back ago, but I didn't grow up in the faith. And the one thing that I've learned, and I'll keep it short, is this: there's a lot of things that I cannot control that are outside of my power. Nation's economic problems and the political, there's some things that I cannot control. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all my time and effort and concentrate on the things that I can actually change, and hopefully for the better. So, and that comes my family. I didn't know how to talk. My kids, remember, they had to learn how to talk. So we had to learn from somebody. So I take all my time and attention to say, you know what, I'm not going to wait for someone to teach them what the Bible is or what the Bible is not, or what this or what that. I'm like, I have to know it inside and out if I'm going to teach this to anybody. In nursing, they have it's a model, which is a great model. It's cheesy as all get out, but see one, do one, teach one. That's the model. See one, do one, teach one. Go at it. You could do the doing, right? So anyways, in this attention economy, where we're getting distracted and everybody's got a platform, ideas is all get out. Yes, but I'm going to concentrate on my house, and I'm going to listen to people that know more than me when it comes to the scripture, that have values that are higher than, that are lofty, virtuous, that I may imitate, because I don't want to imitate something that's going to destroy my life. And in order to, at the end of the day, that I might be able to teach my kids. So yes, it's a mess and things are going haywire with this attention economy, and everybody has a voice and everybody sees it differently. But you know what? I'm not going to wait till somebody tells me what this is. I'm going to learn the scriptures inside and out. And I do trust in the Holy Spirit. So I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. You got it. You got it. You nailed it, Alex. Thank you. I appreciate it. Good word. All right, Scott, let's just go around the clock here, Scott.
All right. So ideas. I think we're all bringing our, not even our ideas. We're bringing the seeds of our own formation to the space, and we're discussing them, and we're seeing what works, and I love it. Identity. We're using those seeds to then develop and purify our identities the best we see. And through that, we are making a community. I see this as a community. It's doing the things that community does. And it does that through discipline. I think that I've come to a place where I trust the people in this community to lovingly and fervently tell me if I'm going wrong. And then that causes us to make the change and make the turn. So I think all those things are being done here very, very well. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Paul Renee, tell us what that look was as he said discipline's happening. No, go ahead. Just do your whatever you want to say.
Blessed are those who mindlessly and thoughtlessly repeat back their catechism. We need obligation. We don't need all this toxic openness, chasing the next dopamine high, coming up with the next nonsense term like metagelical. Like we don't need any of that stuff. We've innovated and reformed ourselves to death. We need to settle in and work the fields and know our place and shut up. That's like that is 90% of what is wrong with us. Is we think we can figure out what's right, we think we know who we are, and we're going to chase that until the point where we're broken and in debt, without a family and without a community. It's about obligation.
I think you got a fan. Look at that. Paul Renee comes out team rigorist. All right. Let's go with Paul Allen.
So we have an abundance of ideas and mediating narratives. There's a premium on curation in the there's so much abundance in the number of ideas that we have access to today that it's not finding the ideas, it's curating them, and curating is a discipline, and it's a pastoral discipline. And I think a lot of us, me especially, I'm an ideator and I want to create new ideas, but I think there is what the world needs is the curation, is the discipline, is the pruning. And I don't think, and it needs to be done judiciously. You can prune badly. And so I think we need to lean into the discipline. However, understanding that it is a dangerous tool that can be overdone, but something that must be done, and something people are asking for. People want a curated reality because they're inundated by the number of narratives they're being overrun by.
Yeah, good word. Ian.
I think that discipleship is the thing that I walked away from this with, and maybe it's because of Neil's most recent stream on his channel, but I think that's where we're at. And maybe it's this: ideas have some correlation with ideals and idols, and I think that to the extent that we limit our ideas to the rational or to the propositional, to the like sort of languaged, then we submit ourselves to a right-brained interpretation of things. And I've been recognizing the left brain as intensely relational. And I think that that's just where I'm at. So my final word is like operating in relationship with other people in the, I flipped the brain, sorry, in the right brain, allowing it to be undefined and gestalt and all of those things. Watch a Ian McGilchrist thing. But like, I think that will allow us to be more artistic and subjective, and participate with one another in sort of an actual way that is, I think that's really actually where Paul Rene is coming from, is like a need for us to have some grounding in reality. And I believe that you find that not in the rational left brain, but in the more open right brain that we've lost culturally. And so I don't know, to the extent that I can, I think that's some of the way that I'm taking my mind and energy over the next months and year, to just be that way, show up that way in people's lives. Like, who are you really? And how can we be together in this thing that we're clearly together in?
Nice. Thanks, buddy. Also, I just want to put the verbal note in case Marcher or Signs in the Dust or our brilliant little guy did not see that. Marcher, tell us why everything Ian just said about right brain, left brain is wrong. Just leave a comment. Feel free to make it as long as you want. Marcher always gets so pissed off whenever people bring up left brain, right brain stuff. He just hates it. Drives him nuts. Anyhow, little fun aside. Seabax, close us out, buddy.
Yeah, I like things that were said. It's kind of interesting. I felt like Paul Rene and Paul Allen kind of said two opposite things. Do y'all feel that way? Like, one was like idea creation in the idea space, and Paul Rene's like, get out of the idea space completely, and land on the ground. I kind of come from thinking like more of the synthesis, that we're gonna have to figure out how to play in both better, because like we have to figure out how to have wisdom in both better than we've had in the past whiles, because we've been aimed only at like escape, and now we're realizing, oh my gosh, we're about to reach like a terminal orbit or whatever, and I don't know if we want that. So, but this has been where this is where everybody is. Like, this is where all of Gen Z is. Like, so you had to like, how do you understand how to, bring them, is there wisdom here? Is there wisdom there? I don't know, something like that. And yeah, that's identity shaped. I think the question is like in the comments from Claire was something that about like, why can't people just,
You just need to agree on the rules, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's worked everywhere.
Yeah, it has. It's
And
really working.
So I don't know.
The gospel, just try harder. Just do it better.
Well, there's something to wanting to be more saintly and holy, related to what is true and good and right and beautiful and all those things. But
sure, the assumption is that me and my team and my ideas are the only ones doing that, though.
Oh, mine for sure is. So
yeah, this is a good. Do you have more to say? Sorry,
I'm just gonna say that. Yeah, I think there's a lot going on right now, and we continue to face the advent of the digital and the analog. In like, I think we need to take them both more seriously. I guess.
Yeah,
I,
that's a good
Yeah.
word.
I fully back that. And so I think there's more a matter of emphasis differentiation than actual differentiation.
Yeah. So, CBAX, thanks for closing us out. I would say that's a good. I also realized in this when I was saying I need to schedule with OG Mike and Ian. I told you. I mean, you've been patiently. I mean, you got your own stuff going on. You're such a big wig corner journalist, but we need to have another conversation, which would be related to this. I think of this pro-felicity aspect and what that means in relation to all these things. I mean, that's kind of what we've been talking about because, yeah, you can. I mean, that's part of it is you can say everybody should just go back and do the things everybody was doing 200 years ago. Like, it ain't going to happen. Like, as my grandpa used to say, wish in one hand, shit in the other, see which fills first. Like, it ain't going to happen. So you got to go wherever, which isn't, and not everybody has to do this, but I think as someone should. So, all right, guys, thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it. Paul, Renee, any plugs? What's the channel going to be? As people should just not listen to this dumb information and be online. What's your YouTube channel?
It's going to be called A Living Sacrifice. I already have a Substack that some
Nice.
people have seen. And despite PVK snide remarks, I hope to make it as far from being about ideas as possible.
Sweet. I look forward to seeing what that is. Future flotilla captain right here. Or maybe not. Maybe it's Jordan Peterson's sphere. Maybe it's Ortho's sphere.
Symbolic world.
Yeah, symbolic world sphere. All right. Thank you guys all for coming. It was a good time. And until next time, go embody. Go be good people in the world. Go be Christians. Go spread the love of God. All right. That's it.